This week's episode is about the number 31 team on the Juggernaut Index, the Cleveland Browns. The Browns provided the fantasy community with exactly one useful player last year, but that guy could find himself on the short end of a platoon this season. Jerome Harrison was the top scoring fantasy running back over the final 3 weeks of 2010, thanks to an obscene workload of 35.3 carries per game, and a friendly schedule of at Kansas City versus Oakland and versus Jacksonville. He's not guaranteed a thing in 2010, however. Rookie Montario Hardesty, a second-round draft pick, has made an excellent initial impression on Cleveland coaching staff. He gained 1,345 yards and 282 carries in his final season at Tennessee, and he was a strong performer at the NFL Combine with 4.49 speed versus his position in vertical and broad jumps. Hardesty has actually been drafted ahead of Harrison in several early industry mocks, based on presumably his upside, and Jerome put a 286-yard rushing performance on his resume last year, during the fantasy playoffs. There's really no loyalty in our imaginary game. Ultimately, these two backs could form a respectable committee. At 6'0", 225, Hardesty certainly looks the part of an every-down back. He has a size advantage over the 5'9" Harrison, but the rookie also has a worrisome injury history. He's had multiple knee surgeries, ankle issues, and a stress fracture in the recent past. It seems likely that both backs will get touches in Cleveland, and they'll run behind a credible offensive line that features Pro Bowl left tackle Joe Thomas. Right now, running backs Chris Jennings and James Davis are just names on the depth chart, as is fullback Peyton Hillis. We definitely know that the Browns will run the ball, almost regardless of the game situation. Check out last season's run-pass split. Hardesty and Harrison will divide a serious workload, although they will, of course, face a brutal AFC North schedule, and it's clear that Cleveland will again have a low-yield offense. When the Browns signed quarterback Jake Delhomme to a deal in March, the franchise basically guaranteed itself another season of single-digit point totals and game-changing turnovers. Seriously, if a team wants to deliver a groin kick to its fan base, the best way to do it is to acquire Delhomme. He turned the ball over 27 times in his last 12 games, dating back to his catastrophic playoff performance against Arizona. Jake threw 18 interceptions in 11 appearances last season. At this stage in the 35-year-old's career, he's simply not someone you want at the controls of an offense, not in real life and not in fantasy. Delhomme was a mess in Carolina when he had Steve Smith at his disposal. There's no reason to expect better results with the Browns receiver corps. Here's a partial list of the wideouts who will be targeted on Delhomme's interceptions this season, in order of projected fantasy relevance. Mohamed Massaquoi, Joshua Cribbs, Brian Robisky, Chancey Stuckey, and rookie Carlton Mitchell. Massaquoi is a legit talent who delivered a pair of 100-yard performances last year versus Cincinnati and at Detroit. And coaches claim that Robisky made a huge jump during the offseason, but again, this crew is burdened by Delhomme, and Plan B is Seneca Wallace. Don't expect to see Colt McCoy in his first NFL season. The team doesn't necessarily view him as a future starter. Right now, he's merely a project. Cribbs gets bonus points for wildcattery, and he's clearly a must-draft in return yardage formats, but he's not a starter in leagues of standard size. There's no obvious upside with any Browns receiver, really. Cleveland's defense was among the NFL's worst last year, finishing 29th against the pass with 244.7 yards per game and 28th against the run with 144.6 yards per game. The Browns didn't create many turnovers with only 10 picks and 8 fumbles, although they did manage 40 sacks, the 8th highest total in the NFL, so that's something. But Cleveland's D-line did not rate well in Jason Cole's review of the league. If you're assembling an IDP roster, you'll want to consider linebacker DeQuell Jackson for sure. In 2008, he led the NFL in tackles with 154. But there are no other high-end options on the Browns' defense. Linebacker Scott Fajita and safety Abram Elam can be rostered, but you'll drop them in Week 8 when Cleveland has a bye. And that's all needs to be said about the Big Brown machine. The passing attack appears to be hopeless. You can invest in the team's running game if you like, as long as you don't pay a significant price. Start thinking Hardesty and Harrison in round 6. With the Bucs and the Chiefs both on the schedule in September, there's a good chance that one of them will deliver a decent fantasy line early in the season. But the Browns close against Cincinnati, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh in weeks 15 through 17, so don't expect another end-of-the-season rushing binge.